everybody, welcome or welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicole and this is my 2024 best of, so let's get started. Everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while I prattle on about my best of books for 2024. All right, so as we're closing out the year, I have started to reflect on the books that I have read over the past 12 months. And so basically I have read over 300 books. Actually, I've read over 330 books in the past year. A lot of those have been cookbooks and craft books, but probably a fair chunk of those, probably about 50, maybe even 60 of them have been that sort of type of book. So we've got like some, activity books and craft books and pattern books, cookbooks, and just general and some self-help books and whatnot. So I'm not going to talk about any of those ones. That's probably going to be a separate video because there were a lot of really good ones, and I'm probably going to do my top 4 or top 5 or something along those lines. I'll do something around the quilting and also the other craft books and the cookbooks. So that's not going to be today. Today what I'm going to be talking about are the novels that I have read. So I have had a great year of reading. I've had over 75 star reads. I've had over 150 4-star reads. I've had a couple of 4.5s and 4.25s. I've had probably about the same again, 150, maybe a bit less, maybe about 100 3-star reads, and I've had a couple below that as well. I think only about 8 or whatever, but everything has been a 3 and above. And this teaches me, what this teaches me from these statistics is that I actually am really enjoying what I'm picking up. I know what I like to read, and so I know that I'm going to enjoy it. And I think as you become more and more ingrained into different genres and stuff like that, you start to know what you like. Of course, I've had the Women's Prize for Fiction, so there's a lot of literary fiction thrown in here as well. And there's a couple of, there's a lot of NetGalley novels as well. And some of them have actually made the list as well. So I'm not doing, this year, I'm not doing my top 10 or my top 12. I'm actually doing my top genres. Actually all genres, and I'm just, because I have read just about every single genre. I actually have one here that is not a genre, but it's a personal one that I look for each year, which also in the past has contributed to what my top book is. Now, I'm not giving you my number 1 book of the year because I can't choose. So I've just gone with the number 1 book of the year for each genre. So that's what I'm going to do today. So if it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, I'm going to tell you why I liked it and what I liked about the series and all that sort of stuff, if it was, and all that sort of thing. I'm going to keep it as brief as possible. I'm not going to go into the synopses of the books. I will just, but because you've already heard about them, I've talked about them on the channel, although one of them you probably haven't seen yet. So I'm just going to go through. I've got everything from Best KU and all that sort of stuff. So there'll be graphics getting chucked up. There'll be all sorts of things happening up on the screen, as well as some of the books that I have here on my physical shelf. Now, I have read a lot of books off my physical shelf this year, not just this pile, but I have somewhat neglected my shelf as well. But I'm still happy with what I've read. I will have how many books I read off my physical shelf video and all that sort of stuff thing coming, because I'm still doing that. I'm still getting all those details together because I fell behind with my story graph. So I've got to go in and update, put it whether it's on my shelf and all that sort of stuff. So, and where I got it from. So that video is coming. It'll be in sometime in January, so you can keep an eye out for that. But I'm ready for the best of, because everything has a star rating and all that sort of stuff, so it makes it super easy. When I go into Storygraph, I can see what, without having to try and recall over 300 books, I can see what has been a good book for me and my reasonings why, if it's got a review and all that sort of stuff, and it's always got a star rating. And that way it's helped me to not have to keep track of it every month or anything, because I didn't keep a reading journal this month. I've just used Goodreads and Storygraph. All right, so basically these are all the books that I have looked at, thought about, and it's taken me probably a week or 2 to just sit there and actually ponder the books and actually think. Now, not all of these are 5-star reads. Some of them are 4-star reads, but I just had a good time with them, and so I enjoyed them. And they, they might have been 4-star reads because they just weren't quite there at a 5, but that was still a fun time. All right, so I'm going to start with the classics. As you know, I read a lot of classics this year. I did Victober, and one of the books that I read in Victober, I do have to stretch over to get the books because there's a pile of them there, is A Lady Audley's Secret. This is a copy that I got from Demi comics. This is the Penguin English Library editions, and I just love these because they've got the different covers on them, and they've got these red and or they're actually all different colours, but they have the orange spine so you can distinguish them as a penguin. And Lady Audley's Secret is like a bit of a sensational novel for its time, and we actually have a woman who is married to, I can't remember what I think he's just a lord. So she's married to a lord, and she basically was a governess for another family, and she met this lord and subsequently married him. And then the cousin, I think it was his cousin. I can't remember whether it was his cousin or whether it was the daughter's cousin. I don't know. It was, or his ex-wife's cousin. Anyway, a cousin turns up with a gentleman who turns out to know Lady Audley, and I'm not going to spoil it for you because this is actually a really good book. This was really hard to put down, but I gave this 5 stars because I enjoyed it so much. And basically she has this secret, and then we just go through the whole sequence of the lengths that she will go to keep that secret, and how this stranger who has turned up with the cousin ties into all of that. And it was just a great, there was thrilling elements in it, there was mysterious things happening, not quite sure if that was what was happening, you know, so it had that mystery element to it, and it also had the scandal to it as well. So very, very well-rounded book by Mary Elizabeth Braddon, and it was the first time that I read Elizabeth Braddon as well. So this one was my top pick out of my classics this year. All right, the next one is best KU book that I've read this year. Now, this was hard, but I thought about it, and it was one that I just recently read, and it was for the Naughty and Nice book club over on my Patreon, and it was Daughter of No Worlds. I absolutely fell into this story, absolutely loved it, loved Max, loved all the characters in it actually, and hated a couple of them as well, but I just had a really fun time with it, and we've all decided that we're going to continue on with this series into 2025 for Naughty and Nice book club. We're just going to read the next one in the series because it's such a great world to be in, and it was really well written, and you'll hear in a moment why, but Carissa Broadbent has actually become an automatic pickup author for me. So whether that's buying the books or getting them on KU, definitely someone that I'm going to revisit a lot, I think. And so in the middle of December, the next one as well I'm going to talk about is these ones were read in December. So that's why I hold off on these, and they have ended up on there. So that's Daughter of No Worlds, and I'm going to continue on with that. And of course, I am actually doing exclusive Patreon content around these books, and so they've already got their first video, and of course they're going to get a second one to see what I think about the next one. And I also got the novella on Max as well from Carissa Broadbent's website for joining her newsletter. So I got that little novella, so I have that to read as well. So I'm going to try and get to that sooner rather than later. All right, the next one I'm going to go on to is best series. Now this one was hard. I have read a couple of series this year. I haven't completed all of them, but ones that I have completed, I fell in love with these books. For whatever reason, I just needed them at that time, and I fell in love with them. So that I couldn't pick. So I actually have 2 best ofs. These were equally tied, and that is the Ashley Herring Blake Bright Falls series, which has Delilah Green Doesn't Care, Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail, and Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. So they are. They made the top. They've been sitting there for quite some time. So that is the series there. I love the covers. They're look beautiful on my except I got one that was damaged, which I wasn't too impressed about in the mail. My postman needs to stand talking to. But they made the list, and I'm super glad that I read them, and because I've fallen in love with this author. I love her writing style. I love how she writes banter. I love how she writes fights and all the things that come with romance, miscommunication, third act breakup, all that sort of stuff. I just love everything about her writing, and I'm so glad that I picked it up. And I picked up Delilah Green on a recommendation from Neva, so that was really exciting because it was one of Neva's favourite books, I think, last year. And so I picked it up on a recommendation and absolutely loved Delilah Green, and then absolutely loved Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. Iris Kelly wasn't my favourite, but I still had a fun time with it out of the 3. And overall, this series got a 4.75 rating for me. Wasn't quite a 5-star, even though Delilah Green was a 5-star read, and so Astrid was a 4.75. But and the 4.75 one is actually my favourite of the series, even though it wasn't a 5-star. I should probably bump it up to a 5-star, which will then take this series up to a 4.75, a solid set 4.75. But anyway, that was that one. But the 5-star series, I think, is that these were both equally good, and that's why I couldn't choose between them, because for both reasons I just loved being at Bright Falls and how that all played out in that series. And then I fell into this one in the middle of December, and I've also read Six Scorched Roses in this duology, which is the novella between the two. So I finished this duology in pretty much a week. I sat down and just devoured these. I absolutely adored this series. Like, I just could not put this down. This one, I just loved it, how it all worked out. Like, I think in my vlog I said, you know, if you liked Hunger Games and that style thing and throw some vampires in there, I think you're going to really like this one. A lot of people said that I probably wouldn't like this one because it was supposed to be like Sarah J. Maas. I've never read Sarah J. Maas, so I have no comparison. But I'm glad that I picked this up. This was on Kindle Unlimited as well, so you can get it there. And I did get the audiobook for it because I had it on Kindle Unlimited first. And that's my preferred method of buying my audiobooks, because I get them for $3.50 as opposed to $14.95. So, you know, and I get the book for free because it's on Kindle Unlimited. So that's my preferred way to get my audiobooks for Audible. And I had both of these on there, so that was really good. And I also have the novella as well. I will definitely be revisiting these for sure, and also the Delilah Green ones as well. I will definitely be revisiting both of these. I just had such a fun time. This one was very action-packed, and so was this one. We had a lot of good wrap-up and all that sort of stuff in this one as well. I love the world building. It's not overly complicated. I loved everything about these books. And of course, I do have a dedicated vlog coming to these, so you'll get a lot more, you know, more about these. I don't know what else to say except that I absolutely love them, and I can't wait to read more from this author. They are brilliant books, and if you haven't read them, I highly recommend that you do. Okay, so the next, that was for best series. The next one that I had, best self-help book, this was Cure for Burnout. It was a NetGalley book, and this book, this was really good because this actually had actionable points in it. And the reason that I liked it so much is because this person actually that wrote the book had suffered from severe burnout herself, and this person now teaches people at like PayPal and Google and all that sort of stuff how to avoid burnout, because it's so easy, because we're switched on all the time, to burn out very quickly. And it was a really good almost like a workbook in a way, because she not only gave you the scenario that was playing out, like what they were going to be talking about, but also gave real life situations of clients of hers that she's worked through this particular problem with, and then actually gave you actionable things that you can incorporate into your life. And it wasn't just the airy fairy stuff of like meditate more and you do yoga and all this sort of stuff. It was actually things that are more geared towards the real world, because not everybody can meditate, not everybody can do yoga. So yeah, so for whatever reason, she's given you extra, like not extra things, but different ways to deal with that particular type of burnout. And it wasn't just covering stress, it was covering a lot of different things that manifest into burnout as well. So it's a really well-rounded book in my opinion, and that was called The Cure for Burnout. You can see the author on there because I didn't write down the author's names when I put these down. I just wrote them down, but anyway. Unless I've got the books here in front of me, you're going to get the authors off the covers. But really well done. Like, and it didn't. And this was a audio book that I listened to. It didn't feel like I was missing out on anything if I didn't have the ebook or the physical book. But it is definitely a book that I am looking to purchase. I haven't seen it anywhere in the shops. I have been looking, but for now I'm on a buying hiatus. So it may be just the fact that I will have to re-listen to it again on audio, because I still have the audio on my NetGalley shelf. But if you are suffering with burnout or anything like that, I highly recommend this one. It's very easy to listen to, it's very easy to navigate, and it's very easy to put the action plans into place without being even more stressed by it, but just doing little tweaks here and there to help you get through and to stop that burnout that we can all suffer. The next one was Best Thriller. Now, this was a tough one because I didn't really read a lot of thrillers this year. There were a few. A lot of them fell short. They fell into, you know, the 3 and 3.5 star rating. But I did have one that was in my 5 stars. So this one was the one that I ended up going. There was one other one as well, and I had to toss up between the two. One was a reread, and one was one I had just discovered through Crystal from Bomb Book Reviews. And so basically, I decided not to do the reread one because it was on my list last year, I believe it was on, or maybe the year before when I read it. I can't remember when I read it now. But I decided for whatever reason I was going to put a reread on there. So the book that made it, and you can see the graphic here, is The Hunted by Gabriel Bergmoser, I think is the author's name, if my memory serves me correctly. So you can check that out. This one is set in Australia. It's by an Australian author, and this one was like a little bit of like a cat and mouse sort of game, hence the name Hunted. So we have a situation where a young girl is looking for her mother. She meets up with a person in a bar. They end up in a car together. They end up going to this small town. This small town's a little bit creepy and a little bit funky. And we also have a situation happening at a service station as well, and all these things are sort of happening. And like as I was reading it, I'm like, I think I've been to that service station. Or gas station for those in America, and like in the outback, there's hundreds of kilometers between towns and stuff like that, and you get these little like houses that end up putting, you know, petrol pumps in the front of their yard, and they turn it into a service station, and it might sell food and stuff like that, and it's usually really dingy, and it's not all real nice or anything like that. And I've been to a couple like that, so this one really resonated in that aspect. And so that's why it got a 5-star rating for me, and it had some really creepy factors in it. It is thriller, but it has horror elements to it, and and it's like, are they going to survive? Are they not going to survive? You know, and there's a few things that are like, oh, made me cringe a bit. All right, so my best contemporary was Role Playing. This was on Kindle Unlimited, and I came across this one when I was doing the Amazing Readathon, I think it was, and I absolutely loved it. This has older characters in it, and you know, one is divorced, and they come together, and it's through gaming. I'm not a gamer, but I really enjoyed this element of it, and how they came together, and just the banter and everything from this author is written really well. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I devoured this in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. I highly recommend it if you're looking for older characters, and so they're in their 40s, I believe, and it was just great. It was, you know, very wholesome in a way, and and just basically a great book to curl up for the night with. And that one is also on KU if you're looking for it, and it's called Role Playing. All right, the best horror. This was another one that I couldn't quite decide. Now, this second one that I put down, this one had all the creepies to it, and I really liked it. But one of my favourite authors is actually at the top of the list, and I couldn't decide, so I'm going to actually give the NetGalley arc that I've got, which I read in December just recently, an honourable mention here, and that is Porcelain. And it is this one is sort of looking at the trauma and how we manifest that in our brain, and how it then can come out. And this one is coming out in the way of a creepy doll. And so it was quite interesting in how the author done it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is available. I have found it over on KU. It was originally a NetGalley book. And basically it wasn't my favorite book of the year as such, but it is getting an honorable mention just because of the way it was done, and how it looked at mental health, and how we deal with trauma, and how we can see something as a child, and that can affect us for the rest of our lives, whether it be, you know, through acting out violently or being a recluse and all that sort of stuff, and not quite knowing where you are. And I felt like that this was probably a little bit touching on schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia and stuff like that as well, because a couple of times it alluded to it that maybe one of the characters had schizophrenia. And so it was quite well done. I really enjoyed it, so that's why it's getting an honorable mention. But, and this is a trilogy that I have not finished. My favorite book was My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, and also the second one. So I am part of the way. This series is probably going to end up as our best horror series, I'd say. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. It was really easy to read. I buddy read it with Coda as well, and someone else. Who else was the buddy reading with us? Jean? No. I can't remember now. Anyway, I probably should have wrote that down. But that one was a 5-star read for me. I absolutely enjoyed it. I loved it. And then I went on to the second one, which is Don't Fear the Reaper. And it just stepped up. It was even better. So like, it is probably going to be a 5-star series for me. So keep an eye out for that. I haven't completed a lot of series yet, so I am actually compiling this. I've got a feeling that this will be coming either during the year or towards the end of the 2025. Okay, so I had troubles picking the best book in historical fiction. Now, if you know me, you know that historical fiction is my jam. I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. Now, I really struggled to pick two of these books. Now, these both fall under historical fiction. So yeah. And one has a little bit of like fact to it, and the other one is just pure fiction. And you probably could say it's magical realism, but it falls under the banner of historical fiction. When you look it up, it is actually historical fiction. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Kate Foster. This was a 5-star read for me. This is The Maiden. This is following Christian. I just had to find the name. Following a Christian who is, she ends up being charged for the murder of her lover, James Forrester. Now, they are sort of related, and basically, this is what it says. It is set in October 1679. Christian Nemo is arrested for and charged with the murder of her lover, James Forrester. News of her impending trial is splashed across the broadsides, which is like a tabloid of today, with headlines that leave little room for doubt. Adulteress or a mistress. And that is all that I wanted to know when I went into this book. And a year ago, she was leading a life of privilege and married to respectably when what led her to risk everything for an affair. And and so basically we have this affair happening. It's not my favorite thing to read about, as you know, but we have this affair that is happening in this book, and you start to feel a little bit bad for her in some ways, but other ways you're like, well, you did kill him and whatnot. But then the story sort of unfolds. I love this cover as well, and it's called The Maiden, and it's not referring to the woman. Okay, so there is a reason why it's called The Maiden, and it's quite interesting. She is going to, because she is a lady, she will actually she's up for beheading, so she's going to be executed. So that was my favorite. And the other one, this one I could not put down. This one is called The Secret History of Witches. This is by Louisa Morgan, and this is following multi-generational book, and it's following it starts in 1821 and in Brittany, and basically we are following a series of related witches through the generations, and what they do for love, and also how their decisions affect them and the consequences of those decisions, using witchcraft to get what they want. So it was a very, very interesting story, and yeah, absolutely loved it. Couldn't put it down. So I'm going to say about it, because if I talk too much about this one, I will give things away. But it is a great book. I love this author's writing. Their way to spin a yarn and keep you entrapped into that story, and you're just wanting to know more. Like, I could not put this book down. I actually put all my other books on hold to read this one, and I do have one of the author's books, another book on my TBR for 2025, which is called The Witch's Kind, and she predominantly writes stuff in the witch genre, which is not a genre about witches and stuff like that. All right, the next one that I'm going to talk about, and this is one where I have created my own category, and this one is a best emotional read. So this is a category that has either led me down the rabbit hole of learning more, or it has been a very thought-provoking book, or it has made me have a visceral reaction to the book. And so basically I have read several of those books this year, but these two, again, there are two, have really stood out for me. And one is off the Women's Prize for Fiction, and you've probably seen my vlog about that. If you haven't, I'll link that up down below. But it is called Brotherless Night, and this is referring to the Tamil Tigers Civil War. I think it's in Pakistan, if my memory serves correctly. And there was a civil war within the country, and it was with the Tamil Tigers and the military. And basically we're following Sashi, and Sashi is a 16-year-old girl when the war breaks out. And she is trying, the question that's being asked in this book is, can you move through life without actually hurting anyone? And she's exploring that theme to see, like, to understand more of why people do think the things that they do. And it's such a gut-wrenching story. And it even delves into, you know, a suicide bomber and their reasonings behind it and what drove them to do it. And, you know, and the different things that happen throughout the book that make you think, you know, would you have reacted this way? Would you have done something different? And so, yeah, and that is the question that she's asking. Now, this was the ultimate winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction. It has a non-removable sticker on the front, but it is telling me that it's the winner, so I don't mind that. I have, as I said, I've already read this, and that's why it's on the list, because it was such a good book. It was such a moving book, and it was such like, I didn't know this was happening. This Civil War went for 29 years. I believe it finished in 2009, possibly. It's also looking at education, because she wanted to become a doctor. That was what she wanted to do. It's also looking at you know, education and silencing people as well. So getting rid of things that should be, and the importance as well of documenting history, so we can learn from the mistakes that we've made, so we can't repeat the same things. Because if we don't document it correctly, you know, you don't get the true picture. So we're getting, you know, the victors always paint a different story than the people that lost the war. You know, like, they have more heart-wrenching stories to tell. You know, the victor has more positive, a more positive thought on it because they won, whereas the losers, if there are, I mean, in a civil war there are no winners or losers, but, you know, the side that's battling against the change and wants all the things different to make a better way of life, I feel like this is that book that explores that. So you get to see that a little bit better and see what's happening. And even to the point of the Western world ignoring what was going on and ignoring some of the things that were going on, like the United Nations human rights violations and all that sort of stuff. So it was quite a heart-wrenching story in that aspect. And I do recommend it. I think I gave it a 4.5 star. The other one that got a 5-star read from me is Alice Walker's The Colour Purple. This one just provoked so many visceral reactions in me when I was reading it. It was quite upsetting. I cried during this book. I was shocked. I was in awe. Yeah, and people that I was buddy reading with, you know, people had to put it down and walk away from it. It was heavy content, and it is, and it's going to provoke so many emotions. It's the only book that I've ever read of Alice Walker's, but I'm very keen to look at her poetry and her essays, and she has quite a number of books as well. And I believe that there are 2 more in this series as well. So I'm not 100% sure if they are connected or whether they're standalones, but she has 2 books before The Colour Purple, and then she has 2, 4, 6, 8 after that. Also, there's a whole heap of poetry and a whole heap of essays that I'm going to try and find. But to be honest, I've not seen a lot of Alice Walker stuff around, so it might be a little bit hard to find here. So yeah. All right, next we are moving. They are my emotional reads. They caused a lot of reaction in me, and a lot of anger and a lot of feelings. So I have created my own little genre there of emotional reads. The next one that we're going to look at is the LGBTQIA plus category, and my best one for this was hard because I have the Delilah Green ones that I read, and I've got a few other ones that I've read throughout the year. The names are escaping me, but the standout one for me was Special Delivery by Arnold Miles, and this one was so beautifully written. It was spicy as all get out. But it was beautifully written in the way that there was so much communication, so much caring and everything behind this. This is a male-male romance, and it is set in COVID. It got a solid 5-star from me, and I just absolutely loved how this story was written. It was, and I discussed it with Coda as well, and basically it was written really, like, I always was already thinking that, but then Coda also backed up some of my thoughts that it was written realistically. You know, this is how communication should be, this is how, like, it's all the things that a relationship should be. And so we have the main character who is gay, and we have a delivery guy, you know, income the delivery guy, and he's hot and he's discovering himself. So it is a little bit of self-discovery and all that sort of stuff, and the story unfolds from there. It's a great quick read. It's not an overly long book. I think it comes in at around 200 pages, but it's an absolutely well done book. I absolutely loved it for all the reasons that I've mentioned, and so many other reasons why. And it's just, it was well done. It was well executed, and it was a NetGalley book that both Coda and I got approved for, and then we buddy read it together, and it was just absolutely fabulous. And I am loving the fact that I'm getting so many different varied books and everything from NetGalley, and it's really been a great time this year for that. All right, the next one we're going to move on to is YA. Now, YA is not something that I read a lot of, but this year in Mystic Readathon, I had to read one of the prompts was read from a BIPOC author. So I picked up Tracy Deon's Legendborn series. I only had 2 on the, which one's first? Which is book 1. Anyway, I read both of these back to back. I'm pretty sure that this is the first one and then this is the second one. So anyway, I read both of these back to back. I actually have now got the audio for these because I will listen to these with Mia in the car when she's a little bit older. So I've, preempted that she's going to like it. And so, because she loves a bit of fantasy and whatnot. So essentially, if you haven't heard of this, this is basically a chosen one story. We've got the legend of King Arthur driving the story, and we've got betrayal, we've got all the things in here. We've got betrayal, we've got magic, we've got King Arthur, we've got not quite fitting in and all that sort of stuff, a little bit of an outcast, chosen one, all the things that you've got. It's fast paced, you will not be able to put it down. The magic system is relatively easy to understand. The action is great, the plot is awesome, it continued over nicely, and the third book is coming out in March of 2025, I believe. So I will be definitely picking that, hopefully getting that on NetGalley. If not, I will have to put it on my wish list and get that book. So I may not get to it this year, but I'm hoping that I can. All right, the next one that I have now, this is a Christian Christian and spirituality category, and so in this category of books are might be tarot books, numerology, anything about spiritual well-being, all that sort of stuff, memoirs, all that sort of thing. So anything revolving around Christianity or spirituality will be in this category. And actually a book actually won out for me, and this one was delving into the realm of unwaverable faith, and also telling a story about how they helped some of the Jewish people in the Second World War, and was helping them escape the Nazis, and subsequently what happened to her family. And it's a Watch family, and they live in where do they live? They live in Holland. That's right, it was in Holland. So they're in a town in Holland, and basically this is what it's called. It's called The Hiding Place. It's by Corrie ten Boom, and it is actually a memoir of sorts, but told in like a novel form. And so basically we have a situation, and that's how it felt to me. Like, it is a memoir, most definitely a memoir, but it basically is telling the story of her family. Now, she was a young woman when this all happened, was taking place. It is based on a true story. And we have her father, who is a watchmaker and has been a watchmaker for 100 years. And basically they start taking in the Jewish people and hiding them out and moving them on and getting them out of harm's way. And subsequently we end up with like, her sister's very, very spiritual and like believes in God, prays all the time, and knows that God will take care of her. And Corrie is sort of having some doubts and all that sort of stuff. And of course her father is there, and he's quite the same way as well. And they just really wanted to help the people, and then subsequently they got caught out and they ended up in the concentration camps, in their jail actually, and then her father got sent to a concentration camp, I believe. And so we go through the heartache of her not knowing where her family is, and her coming to her sister's faith never wavered, but Corrie had some doubts. But as we progress through the book, we learn more and more about her faith and how it became stronger and how she relied on that to help her get through those dark times. And subsequently, there's another 2 books that are now on my bookshelf. And one is told pre this story, which is a prequel, and the other one is her after it. And basically how she went around not preaching as such. She became a missionary in a way, or a transient missionary, and wanted to spread the word of God and also help people at the same time without being forceful about her religion. Does that make sense? Because that's how it sort of was worded. So that's how the third book is supposed to be about, and I will want to try and get to them this year. But this was a great read, a really quick read. It was very compelling too, and very thought-provoking as well, in the fact, like, how would you deal with something like that if that was presented to you? And of course, we can only imagine. We can't, and I hope we never see anything like that again. Like, You know, it must have been such a scary time for all those people. Like, I can't even like fathom the atrocities that happen. But this sort of touches on it, and it also gives you a little bit of like you get to look at how some of the soldiers felt from the Nazi side of things, and how they didn't like what was happening as well. There was a little bit of touch on that. I would have probably liked a little bit more on that, but I guess at the time, you know, when she was writing this, she was a lot older, the time had passed and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was a good book, and if you haven't read it, The Hiding Place is something that you could probably pick up and read in a weekend, and you will have a really nice appreciation for her family and what they did. Okay, so the next one, and I gave that 5 stars, that one. And but just know, if you're not into reading Christian books, like heavily based Christian books, then this probably isn't going to be for you. But I'm always open to read lots of different religions, because it gives you more perspective of how the world you live in. And I've always preached that to my kids as well. And my mum also preached that to me. So that's why I pick up these books, even though people go, gee, that's not something I would ever pick up, or things like that. So yeah, but really good book, really good book. Okay, so the next one, I've just got my list over here. The next one is The Best Retelling. Now, if you've been around for a while, you know I love Jane Eyre. And at the beginning of the year, I read Salt and Broom. I'm pretty sure that's what's called, is it? Yeah, Salt and Broom. And here's the cover for it here. I absolutely love this. So this is Jane Eyre, but a witchy point of view. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, because it's basically Jane Eyre. If you've read Jane Eyre, you know the plot, you know that, but it actually has, it's from the point of view of a witchy one. Now, I think the year before, one of my best of books was another Jane Eyre retelling, which was called Jane Steele, and that was from a murderous point of view. So it was very, very good, and this was very well done as well. Absolutely love this, and I buddy read this with Christina. So yeah, and Christina is the mod on most of the Booktube channels for sprints and stuff like that. So yeah. All right, the next one that I read, which was a KU book but is subsequently going to end up on my shelves, is when I continue it. This is The Legacy of Gods. This is the best dark romance that I read this year. I've read many, and it was hard to choose. And I'm like, in the end, I was almost going to like just roll a dice and pick that way, because there's To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. I read that, and there's been a couple. Adeline was another one that I read, and I'm just trying to think of some of the others. I can't off the top of my head, but it was hard. But I went with, Pretty Monsters was another one that I read. That was really close to this one. In fact, I probably should have put both of them in, but I ended up going with A God of Malice. I had a great time reading this, and we read this for the Naughty and Nice Book Club, and so we had a fun time with this. So I'm hoping that with the Naughty and Nice Book Club, after we've finished Daughter of No Worlds, we might go back to this one and pick up the second one. But this one was great. This one, we're following Killian, who is a predator cloaked in charm, and we have Glendon, who has never been anyone's favourite, always falling short of her family's expectations until Killian comes into it. And yeah, and it was just a good time. Like, it was dark and spicy, had all the things that you need in dark romance. All the red flags were there. But you know, I just need them sometimes. So yeah, I will definitely be continuing this, but this ended up being my favourite for the year. But the next one is The Best Lit Fic, and this one, I talked about this on Sprints a little bit earlier with my Patreons. And In Defense of the Act is a book that essentially feels a little bit like an essay style, where we're looking at the act of suicide, and the author is asking the question, like, is basically defending the act of suicide in different scenarios. So the book covers, and this was on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list. It didn't make the short list, unfortunately, so it's not on my shelf. It is on my Kindle. And so basically we've got 3 scenarios here where the first, and I'll just talk about the first story because I don't want to spoil it for you, but the first story, we open up the book where a young girl is going to take something up to her dad. She finds her dad unconscious. Turns out he was trying to hurt himself. She went and got her mother and was trying to hurt himself, and he was saved by the paramedics. And then we explore the premise of what happens if he, like, would their life have been, and what you don't know is he is an abuser. He's not a nice guy, and he's got like mental health issues and all that sort of stuff, but he's an abuser at his soul. And so we're looking at if he had have succeeded, would their life have been different? But now this is what their life is because he didn't succeed. He was saved for whatever reason. And then it goes on to, for people that are doing themselves self-harm and whatnot, and how it affects the people around them and all that sort of stuff, and it just progresses through that. But the author is basically defending the act of suicide, and looking at these different aspects, because sometimes it's not a great thing if someone survives, for the people that are still here, and other times it is a good thing that it was successful, because that person has been able to move on. And it is quite an interesting book. It is quite an emotional book, but it didn't quite make the emotional reads. It didn't make me cry as such, but it was very thought-provoking, and it's I'd have to say it's my best lit fic this year. Best trashy novel of the year was a buddy read that I did with Coda. You can see a bit of a trend here, and this was Snow Shark. This was a trashy horror novel. It was a fun time. I gave this 5 stars. It was so ridiculous that it was just pure vibe. There was many mistakes through the book and all the rest of it, but Snow Shark was a fun time read. It was great. And it automatically went up, and it falls under the trashy genre of books. And I'm definitely probably going to look at doing some of these, because these are on Kindle Unlimited for Garb August. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And finally, we're going to get to my best sci-fi book, which was Kindred. And Kindred is a time travel book where a black woman, I can't remember whether she's in the 70s or the 80s, but anyway, maybe even the 60s. It's historical fiction sci-fi. So basically, we have a black woman that has been, for whatever reason, suddenly gets transported back to the South, and she keeps dropping in to this timeline at different times. So at one time, with the first one, she dropped into a kid drowning, and the mother sitting on the edge, on the bank, not saving the child, and basically, she ends up saving said child, and then she ends up with a gun pointed in her face, but then she disappears and comes back to her own timeline. And the more she goes back, the longer she's staying in that timeline, and different things are playing out. And she's subsequently trying to sort of change the opinion of people and all that sort of stuff. But I just had a really good time reading it, although the contents of the content of the book was a bit harsh and abrasive at times, but I really enjoyed it. And by Octavia E. Butler. I want to read more from this author and basically just devour all their work. So that is another author that will end up being on my automatic buy list when I'm buying books again. If I see her books secondhand, I'll definitely grab them. Kindred is one that I definitely want to have on my bookshelf, because I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. And see, I can read sci-fi and enjoy it. So who knew? Anyway, I just got to find the right sci-fi, right? But that is my best of 2024. Books of 2024. I hope that you enjoyed this. I've done it a little bit different this time, because I had so many books that I had read. But as I said, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video and you've been lurking in the background, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any future posts. And of course, hop, skip and a jump over to the like button and give me a thumbs up there. And if you like what you see today, make sure you head over to the Patreon page and have a look at what we've got on offer there. You've heard me talk about Naughty and Nice and a few things like that, like vlogs and everything in the past, I'm sure. So head on over there, check that out. We've got 3 different tiers. Check out all the things that are on offer. But the best value for money is the top tier, which is the best tiers. You get everything that is listed below. And and so that is it from me today. As always, have a fabulous day no matter where you're watching from, and keep turning those pages, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.